question. And don't get me wrong, I love this dude's game. I think he's ultra talented, but we all know the problems that he has. Why is AD on the list? Why is Anthony Davis on the list? I don't think he's done enough. You could say individual awards. He's done first team, all team, this, that, and the third. But in the playoffs, he ain't won. I mean, when he was the best player on the team, he won one playoff series, made it to the playoffs twice. And the one playoff series that he won, you could argue that he wasn't even the most impactful player on the floor. It was Rajon Rondo, playoff Rondo. So that's a big one for me.
Here's one of the issues I'm having with the whole, Hall of Fame list in the NBA in particular is I feel like they put too much emphasis on two areas. Showing, and I get what you're saying, you want to show respect to the older guys, but it's a new time, it's a new generation, you got to show them guys their respect too as well and give them the proper chances. So I would say it's showing too much respect for the older generation, and I would say overvaluing championships, because you got a lot of guys who balled out on the court.
It's a team award too.
It's a team award, and statistically, man, they're right there with the rest, but they were snubbed because they weren't able to, be on great teams, great organizations, or for whatever reason. That's not their control, and I think that's probably what happened to a guy like Alex English during that time. The guys, they didn't have that power that they have now, to be able to move themselves and go team to team and stuff like that. It wasn't like that back then. It was all ownership, it was all management and executives, and they chose where they wanted you to go.
I agree with you, and the only thing I'll throw back at you, because I agree with that point, is if we're going to throw the availability of and the freedom of certain players, let's also bring in the on-court stuff such as the rules. So you can argue that today's guys have a lot of inflated stats. Some people are arguing right now that Harden wouldn't be the player that he is if he hadn't gotten the free throws and all that type of stuff. Okay, what about some of the rules that got taken out? Hand checking. What's another one? Defensive 3 seconds rules. Like, how much harder would it be to score the basketball? Things like that. And then also another thing a lot of people forget. What about the three-point line? That didn't come through until the 80s. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of different things that I think that you can go back and forth as far as players. Another one I'm going to throw in, you threw in Alex English from the 80s. I'm going to throw in Sidney Moncrief from the Milwaukee Bucks. He challenged Jordan in those first couple of years. He beat Jordan in those first couple of years. Great defender, could score the basketball. He led his team in the regular season. They got to the conference finals, stuff like that. They obviously couldn't pull it out. And so another one I'm going to mention, Klay Thompson. Why is Klay Thompson not on the list? 5 championships in 5 years or whatever. 3-time champion, 3-2 in the finals. One of the top 5, arguably top 3 shooters of all, top 2 maybe. And he's a great defender. And he's gotten snubbed off of multiple all defensive teams as well.
I think that goes back to my point of, giving the older generation automatic spots. Like the first 50 from back in 2000, whenever that list was, they got automatically pushed into the 75. There's something wrong with that. Like, no, you get take back out the pool and you get reinserted and you evaluate and you look, you match up, the older guys with the current guys and see, okay, Klay Thompson, okay, man, okay, well, he beats out this guy. He got to go in, you know what I'm saying? Dwight Howard, he beats out this guy. He got to go in, you know? So giving the older generation automatic spots, I feel, is unfair, because what are we going to say 10, 20 years from now? Are they still going to hold those spots? Is George Mikan still going to hold a spot? I mean, is Bob, you know what I'm saying? I mean, no disrespect to those guys, but it's like, and not saying they should or shouldn't be in, but these are just names that are just coming to my head. It's like, what gives them the right to continue to hold that spot when you got these new guys coming in, still putting in the work, still putting in the time, still putting in the stats, and the resume to compete with the former guys. I feel like that's what it's all about. It's meant to evolve. It's meant to change. And that's why Klay Thompson is, probably got snubbed. But he definitely, I agree, he's proven enough in just his short career. He's done enough. Simply just off the rings. And obviously him being a sniper. And what he's been able to do in this league and change the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait. We can't wait till Klay Thompson comes back. I think he's going to come back in the next month or so, 2, based off what I've heard. So the game needs Klay Thompson straight up. That's period. You brought up the top 50, the previous top 50 got automatic spots. So one could say, well, if I'm top 50, why can't I or shouldn't be top 75? Which I understand that point. But like you said, I think one of the things that you need to measure is peak, what you did at your peak, and how long your peak lasted. Someone like a Bill Walton. A lot of people would say, well, Bill Walton, like, they remember him on the Celtics when he was old and he won a championship with them with Larry Bird. He wasn't even like one of the main players. But Bill Walton, when he first came into the league straight out of UCLA, was a monster. He played in an era that it consisted of Wilt, Bill, Kareem, Willis Reed, a lot of great centers, and he won a championship back, and that was the last championship that Portland won was back in '72, I believe. Someone like him, they say, okay, well, he had like a 3-year peak before he had a nasty injury, and he was never the same. So it's different things. Like I said, I think it's a lot about, just like the GOAT debate, it depends on what you prefer. You mentioned Bob Cousy, right? So I think when you measure someone like, okay, like if they're a first, second, third option, like I think there's only a handful of guys in NBA history that were not first options that should be on the list. So we go back down the list, and I feel like certain guys that were not first options probably shouldn't be on the list. But Klay Thompson's not a first option, but he arguably could probably be one on another team.
There's so many factors that go into this, man. I mean, there's so many differences. I mean, different eras, different times, different rules, different styles. I mean, the game evolves. I mean, you can go on and on and on about, the fairness or the unfairness of each, era, man. And unfortunately, that's just how the game is. The game is going to always evolve. It's going to always get better. It's going to always, be different as we continue to move forward and progress, man. That's just the way it is. But for me, man, I'll just go back to my last point. It's my last point, is just that the pool should always be redone. It should always be reevaluated. I'm not a big fan of automatic spots. Like I said before, it should always be reevaluated, giving these current guys a chance, to submit their name into the top rankings. I just feel like that's the best way to do it. You may look at it and be like, hey, that's not fair, or this, that, and the third, different times, different eras. It depends on how you look at it. But at the end of the day, I feel like that's just the way it's got to be. A 2021 Lambo is going to look better than a 1990 Lambo. I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, like, there's nothing you could do about it. Time is going to always take its course, and people are going to always, evolve and change the sport and how they play. And it's always going to be better.
Yeah, and I think let me throw this, kind of an off-script question at you. What makes one better than the other, though?
Is it
based off of your perception or based off of like what's real?
The thing you got to go off mostly is stats.
But I could argue that some of the rules have made the game worse.
You could say that, but that's not the player's fault, though.
It may not be the player's fault, but that's what I'm saying. Like, for me, like, I would like to see what the NBA would look like again with the defensive 3-second rule.
To me, it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, again, you as a
changes.
player, I mean, hate the game, don't hate the player.
Yeah.
Hate the game, don't hate the player. That's just the way it is. I mean, unfortunately, for the older players, I mean, there's really no way to dice it. But what I'll say is this, man. The one thing you can always go off of, rules or not, when I take this person's stats from 1980, and when I take this person's stats who's currently playing, and I match them up, and I see, okay, this person, 7 All-Stars, 20,000 point scorer. Okay, this person, 25,000 points.
You really could go with
what I'm saying? I mean, like that. You could go with that all day, but you got to match up.
Yeah.
You got to match up, man, and that's just how it's got to go. For me, I feel like that's the only way to keep it fair and keep it honest. Regardless of all the BS.
Yeah. I think one more point I would make, though. I know you talked about the championships. I think even though it is a team award, I think how you contribute to a championship team or maybe an almost championship team matters. I think that championships do matter. I think winning, because that's the name of the game. We don't just go out.
Depending on your role.
That's what I'm saying. And that's why that goes back to my original point when I said, were you a first, second, third option? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We got some guys on there that's probably arguably third options that are on the list.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be.
That shouldn't be the case.
I disagree with that.
And it's
versus
like
a guy who was not on a great organization, but was a first caliber guy, first option, did his thing, dominated on the court. Yeah. Just unfortunate, just didn't have a team, didn't have a coach, didn't have the organization around him to be able to put him in position to, be with a Mike or a LeBron or, this, that, and the third. Those who won those championships.